Hello guys, warm greetings. It's module 4 of the neurophysiology series. I'm Charles, your uncle and presider for this course. In today's module, we'll be looking at the ANS physiology. ANS simply means the autonomic nervous system. Alright, we'll start with a brief introduction, followed by the anatomy of the autonomic nervous system, and then we'll proceed to look at the divisions of the autonomic nervous system, followed by the differences between the somatic nervous system and the autonomic nervous system. And then we shall proceed to look at the differences between the two major wings of the autonomic nervous system, which are the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system. Finally, we'll look at the physiologic actions or the roles of the autonomic nervous system, and then we shall wrap it up by looking at some autonomic disorders or dysfunctions. Alright? Okay. The autonomic nervous system is the aspect of the nervous system that controls the smooth muscles. Smooth muscles are majorly found around the visceral organs. Alright, so it also controls the cardiac muscles and glands, whether it is exocrine or endocrine glands. Remember that endocrine gland secretes hormones, while the exocrine gland secretes digestive enzymes. Alright, it is the autonomic nervous system that controls secretions from these glands and the regulation of glandular sphincters. Alright, the autonomic nervous system is also known as the involuntary nervous system or the visceral nervous system. So they are used interchangeably. Could either say involuntary nervous system or the visceral nervous system. They are the same thing. Alright? Going forward. Okay. The term autonomic means that organs which are innervated or supplied by the ANS are not entirely dependent on nerve supply for their actions. Okay, good. Now, it means that they can function independently of nerve supply. Alright, good. For example, the heart continues to beat even after denervation. Denervation simply means the removal of all the nerves supplying the heart. Of course, the human heart is that organ that continues to beat, never stopping, never ending. And the autonomic nervous system does not produce heartbeats. Alright? There are structures that produce heartbeats. Special tissues like the SA node, the AV node, these things produce the heartbeat. So if you remove the ANS, that is the nerve supply to the heart, it doesn't stop the heart from beating. What the ANS does is to regulate heartbeats, but it does not produce heartbeats. They can influence the heartbeat by either increasing it or decreasing it. Alright, going forward. Now, the skeletal muscles are completely and irreversibly paralyzed after denervation. Removal of nerve supply or injury to a nerve supplying the skeletal muscles would ultimately lead to paralysis. Alright? Skeletal muscles can actually not function after denervation, but the human heart can function after denervation. Alright? Fantastic. Going forward. In addition, the ANS may include the enteric nervous system, which is found within the GIT. Okay? It means that the GIT can also regulate their functions with or without input from the autonomic nervous system. We'll do all of that in gastrointestinal physiology. Going forward, we shall now look at the structural or the anatomy of the autonomic nervous system. This diagram displayed on the screen describes the structure of the autonomic nervous system. Actually, the structural organization of the ANS starts from the lateral horn of the spinal cord. I dissected this, or I discussed this in our last module. Alright, this part of the spinal cord represents what horn? The dorsal horn. This part represents the lateral horn, while this part represents the ventral or the anterior horn. And we are saying that the structural organization of ANS starts from the lateral root horn. Okay? ANS has three major parts. The first part is known as the preganglionic neuron. This area represents the preganglionic neuron. The second part is the ganglia. This area here represents the ganglia. The ganglia is the part where the preganglionic neuron synapse with the postganglionic neuron. Alright? The third part has the ganglionic neuron. Alright? It actually begins from the ganglia and terminates at the effector organs, either the gland or the cardiac muscles or smooth muscles of the internal organs. Alright? Fantastic. Going forward, the preganglionic neuron of the ANS actually originates from the lateral horn. I said that before, and it terminates right inside the ganglia. Okay? The ganglia is the point or the part where the preganglionic neuron synapse or unites with the postganglionic neuron. Alright? Fantastic. Now, the postganglionic neuron originates from the ganglia. Okay, this is the postganglionic neuron. It starts from here and terminates at the effector organs. Like I said earlier, either the smooth muscles of internal organs or the cardiac muscles or glands. Alright, that is the termination of the postganglionic neuron. Going forward, the divisions of the ANS are actually two. The first one is known as the sympathetic nervous system, while the second wing of the ANS is known as the parasympathetic nervous system. Okay, diagram 1 shows you the structure of the sympathetic nervous system, while diagram 2 represents the structure of the parasympathetic nervous system. Okay, the sympathetic nervous system has the following divisions. It is actually the thoracolumbar outflow of the autonomic nervous system, meaning it begins from T1 to T12 and then extend into L1 and L2. Alright? T1 simply means the thoracic vertebrae, while L means the lumbar vertebrae. Okay? Going forward. Now, distribution of the sympathetic nervous system. The sympathetic nervous system, actually T1 supplies the head. Okay? T2 supplies the neck. Alright? The neck regions are supplied by T2. T3 to 6 supplies the thorax, that is your chest region. Alright? Good. T7 to T11 supplies the abdomen. Alright? The abs. Then T12 in concert with L1 and L2 actually innervates the legs. Alright? These are the distribution of the thoracolumbar outflow. Alright? Fantastic. Note that the adrenal medulla is similar to the sympathetic nervous system in structure and function. Alright? Now, the adrenal medulla is a part of the adrenal gland. The adrenal gland has two major parts, the adrenal cortex and the adrenal medulla. The adrenal cortex secretes glucocorticoids and mineralocorticoids, but the adrenal medulla secretes catecholamines, that is epinephrine and norepinephrine, or you can call that adrenaline and noradrenaline. Adrenaline and noradrenaline have similar functions with the sympathetic nervous system. Alright, their actions are very similar in all the physiological systems. I hope that is clear. Fantastic. Going forward, the preganglionic neuron of the sympathetic nervous system is short. Alright, this diagram represents the sympathetic nervous system. This is the preganglionic neuron. From here down to this part represents the preganglionic neuron. So the preganglionic neuron of the sympathetic nervous system is short. It's short like me. Alright? Good. Going forward. Now the cell body of the sympathetic nervous system actually lies at the spinal cord. Alright? This star-like greenish structure with a black nucleus in the middle represents the soma of the preganglionic neuron of the sympathetic nervous system. It lies actually in the spinal cord. Alright? Good. Axons of the preganglionic neuron lies in the ganglia. The white circled structure represents the ganglia. Okay? So the axons of the preganglionic neuron of the sympathetic nervous system terminates here in the ganglia. Alright? Fantastic. The receptors for the sympathetic nervous system are nicotinic receptors, and they use acetylcholine as their neurotransmitter. The postganglionic fiber of the sympathetic nervous system is long. As you can see from the diagram, this is the postganglionic fiber of the sympathetic nervous system, and it is very, very long when compared to the preganglionic fiber. Alright? Good. Now the cell bodies lie in the ganglia. This is the cell body, and it lies right inside the ganglia. Alright? Good. Axons of the postganglionic fiber of the sympathetic nervous system actually terminates at the effector organ. Going forward, there are two receptors used by the postganglionic fibers of the sympathetic nervous system. The first one is known as the muscarinic. Alright? And the other types of receptors are actually the alpha and the beta receptors. The muscarinic receptor uses acetylcholine as the neurotransmitter, while the alpha and the beta receptors actually uses norepinephrine. Alright? Good. We shall now look at the parasympathetic division of the autonomic nervous system. Alright? The division is actually the craniosacral outflow. The cranial parts represents the cranial nerve 3, 7, 9, and 10. Alright? While the sacral portion of the parasympathetic division are actually the sacral vertebrae 2 to 4. Okay? Good. Now, the distributions or the area where this division of the ANS supplies include 1. The cranial nerve 3 actually supplies the papillary sphincter and the ciliary muscles of the eye. This is sphincter. Alright? There's supposed to be a P here. It's just a typo. Forget the typos. Alright? Good. Now, cranial nerve 7 supplies the lacrimal gland, the nasal and the submandibular gland, and the neck. Alright? Good. The cranial nerve 9 actually supplies the parotid gland. Okay? Cranial nerve 10 supplies the thorax, the abdomen, the heart, the lungs, the liver, the kidneys, the intestine, the pancreas, and other internal organs. The sacral portion of the parasympathetic nervous system supplies the bladder, the rectum, the lower part of the colon, and the ureter. Alright? The preganglionic fiber of the parasympathetic nervous system is long. Alright? This is the structure of the parasympathetic nervous system. So the preganglionic fiber begins from here down to this part. As you can see, it is very, very long. Remember, the postganglionic fiber of the sympathetic nervous system is long, but for the parasympathetic nervous system, it is the preganglionic fiber that is longer than the postganglionic fiber. Alright? Good. The cell bodies of the preganglionic fiber of the parasympathetic nervous system lies in the spinal cord. Axons of this fiber actually terminates at the ganglia. Okay? Fantastic. The receptors for the preganglionic fiber of parasympathetic nervous system is nicotinic. It uses acetylcholine as their neurotransmitter. The postganglionic fiber of the parasympathetic nervous system is short. So this is the postganglionic fiber, and from the diagram here you can tell that it is very, very short. Okay? Cell bodies of the postganglionic fiber, of course, lies in the ganglia. Alright, good. The axons terminates at the effector organs. Okay, receptor is muscarinic and the neurotransmitter is acetylcholine. Very simple. You must know how to differentiate between the parasympathetic and sympathetic wing of the autonomic nervous system structurally and even functionally. Okay, in this